Off the bat, the controls look pretty much the same. We have the battery levels, we have different types of modes here. If you press the three little buttons that are in the top right corner of the navigation menu, we're gonna have, all right, so we're gonna have the same tabs. We're gonna have the safety, control, camera, transmission, and about. Now, in the safety tab, most of the times what you are gonna be selecting is the obstacle avoidance, and I have mine set to bypass. You can set yours to brake, but I feel like when you are flying close to like trees or structures, what you want the drone to do is you want it to avoid versus just braking, because in that case you are still going to need to avoid the obstacle. Or you can turn it off if you feel super confident in what you are doing. You can disable the sideways flight if you want to keep it steady, or in case there's going to be like a lot of wind. Mine is going to be turned off for the time being, as in I am not going to be disabling it. And this is where you select your maximum altitude, the maximum distance, and auto return home altitude. Now, mine is set automatically to 120 meters as the maximum altitude, which is, I believe, equivalent to 400 feet, which is that's the maximum altitude at which you are able to fly or allowed to fly according to the FAA Part 107 rules. The maximum distance, I have mine set to about 1.5 kilometers, which is about a mile, which is about a mile or so. In general, you don't want to really push it like past that, because I feel like the signal with the drone can get lost, and then you're gonna have to like basically go out and find it. And also, it's difficult to keep the drone in the line of sight when you are flying that far away, because keep in mind that the drone is small and there's a lot of the sky. You have the auxiliary LED in this case that I am not really going to go over. Unlock. This is where you can unlock the geo zones. The way to do it is you simply click on it, and then I think you have to have internet access for this, but do not quote me on this. This is for flying in restricted zones, if I am not mistaken. And that's pretty much it here. Gimbal mode is set to follow mode. You can set yours to FPV as well. I think if you have the FPV goggles, in this case, allow upward gimbal rotation. I don't allow it because I've never had like a need to use it. So phone charging is off. Stick mode is mode 2. Let's see if there's anything else here. That's pretty much it. And then the next tab, and this is the one that is more interesting for me when you are flying commercially, is the camera tab. Now here we have a couple of options. So we're going to start off with format. Now the format is MP4 versus MOV. I keep mine in MP4. Color space. We have 3 options now. We have D-Log, HLG, which is hybrid, and normal. Now normal, think of normal as the image that is straight out of the camera. HLG is a hybrid log. It usually makes the picture richer, more saturated, more vibrant. And then we have the D-Log, which is equivalent to a flat profile, that the colors are, everything is condensed, but that is done essentially for having the ability to work on your colors and bring everything back in post and color correct it and color grade it, and it just gives you a better dynamic range. So it's basically the way to go. Now, if you're going to be filming in MP4, then the only codec that is available in this case is going to be H.265. So if I'm not mistaken, the Mavic Air 2, I gave you the option of encoding footage either in H.264 or 265, depending on the setting that you were going to go with. But it looks like since then they have upgraded, and the only option today that we have that I see is H.265. Now, for most people, that's not going to matter. Sometimes it does matter, but for the sake of this video, I'm not going to go into those details. Anti-flicker for me is set to auto, and I'm going to keep it at that. Video subtitles, not sure exactly what that does just yet. Histogram is going to be on, because you want to see what your exposure level looks like. You want to keep your histogram somewhere in the middle, if it's going to be either to one side or to the other side. So for example, if it's going to be more on the left hand side, that will mean that the image is getting underexposed. If it is on the right hand side, it's going to be overexposed. You want to keep it in the middle for best possible footage quality. Interesting thing in this case is that so with the new Mavic, we have the option of controlling the white balance, which was not available in the previous version, and I am super excited about this because the color temperature changes. And for example, on a partly cloudy day like today, I would probably set it to 5600 Kelvin. If it would have been a little bit more, if it would have been overcast, I would have set it to 6000, because that's when it gets a little bit whiter. And obviously, when the sun is setting, what you want to do is you want to change your white balance to probably 4600. And obviously, the more tungsten you have, and I'm sorry if this seems a little bit foreign, but for simplicity's sake, 5600 means that it's daylight, and that's what that's what the color temperature is. When you are home and you have those yellow bulbs and it looks like very yellowy, that's tungsten, that's 3200. So it's a different color temperature, and the sensor reacts kind of like differently to it. Internal storage has been increased, and I believe in this model it is 7 gigs, and you have your SD card. So one of the considerations here is that the video is going to be recording at a rate of 100 megabytes a second, if I am not mistaken. So what you want to do, if you haven't already done so, you need to go ahead and upgrade. You need to go ahead and upgrade your memory card. Get something beefy like 256 gigs with a writing speed of at least 150 megs. That's gonna make sure that the video is gonna be captured, correctly. Moving on into the transmission tab, we have. So the definition is going to be either smooth or it's going to be HD. I keep mine on smooth just so that to make it easier on the iPad. And the frequency is going to be 2.4 gigs or 5.8 gigs or dual band. I'm going to keep mine at dual band. Channel mode, auto or manual. I'm going to keep it at auto. And that is pretty much it. We have the ability to change or to switch between autofocus and manual focus, and I'm assuming it's going to be probably the same as in the camera. You literally touch the part of the screen that you want the camera and the sensor to focus on, and that's going to be in focus, while everything else is going to be hopefully blurred out, and it's going to be more out of focus. So that's going to be something very interesting to experiment with. A few last things, and I'm sorry that this is turning out to be a little bit long and maybe it is not interesting, but all of those things you have to take into consideration when you are flying, basically when you are flying commercially or when you're flying professionally, when you are performing commercial work for companies, productions, TV shows, etc. You have to really get to know your gear, because a lot of the times you are going to need to troubleshoot very quickly, and you need to know what your gear is capable of, what your drone is capable of. So, and for that reason, we go over, the settings, the menus, the controller. By the way, a word or two about the controller. The controller, I don't see it being redesigned. This looks like exactly the controller that we had in the previous model. We have the tilt wheel on the back, and then we have the recording button as a right trigger. We have the control sticks, and then we have a pair of extra control sticks, that are embedded into the body. We have 3 modes: city, norm, and sport. And most of the times, the key to getting professional, great-looking aerial footage is flying it slow and steady. Look at it this way: when you are flying high, when you have a lot of information in the frame, it takes time for the brain to process all this. So that's why slow and steady looks great. Slow and steady and gradual looks great. However, obviously there's going to be times if you're going to be tracking a certain kind of movement, if it's going to be going fast, you want to go into normal mode, and sometimes you want to switch into the sports mode. Now, speaking from experience, most of the times I do fly in the city mode. However, if I want to cover a large amount of distance and I know it's going to take time, what I do is I switch it into the sports mode to get there sooner. But there's a caveat in this. When you are flying in sports mode, you are essentially disengaging your obstacle avoidance sensors, which means that if you are not going to be careful, it's very easy to fly into a tree, crash, and cause damage. You want to be very very careful, you know, about that. So now let's go ahead and get some sample footage and see what we get. Let's go.